Look, it's a very fulfilling business when you love helping people. There's no better way than serving them on this level, whether it be in their homes or in a retirement community, whatever it is. Every client is unique and has unique needs, and their adult children have unique needs, and we're here to serve them, and it's just very fulfilling.
Well. My name is Glenn Leingang. I serve as the Vice President of Franchise Development here at Touching Arts and Home. And I'm excited that you would join us today because we have a special guest, a man, a man that is a joy to be around. He makes me laugh every time I see him. He's a great businessman. He's an incredible golfer, and he knows how to have fun. Ladies and gentlemen, come on, somebody, put your hands together for my friend and yours, Dave Wollman. Dave, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Glenn. Well, yeah, that was very kind of you. I'm not sure how accurate it was, particularly on how good a golfer I am these days, but thank you.
Well, as we know, accuracy is not always our aim. I'm joking. And then, and then Dave, I got to tell you, it's always so great to catch up with you. I know that you serve on our franchise advisory board, uh, own two great franchises with us. One, both just outside of Philadelphia, in Yardley, Pennsylvania, in Delaware County, and media in that area. Uh, but just tell me, man, how's your family? Tell me how are you doing? How are you feeling after the conference? Let's just start there.
Conference was fabulous. I think everybody, including myself, felt like it was one of the best conferences we've had. Lots of energy, lots of new faces, which is wonderful. New owners coming, a great representation of our ownership across the board. Um, Good content, really interesting. Great chance to meet these new owners, interact with them. Um, you know, I love helping people. It's why I'm in this business. So you've got a new owner and they're looking for some direction and, they're wide-eyed and wondering, man, I sure hope I did the right thing. And I'm sure all of them after they left that meeting were happy they've done the right thing. But I love interacting with them and just chatting and getting to know them and, answering their questions, kind of relating some of my experiences in this business. And yeah, it's just great fun.
That's awesome. And Dave, for the folks at home, why don't you just share a little bit in terms of how long you've owned uh, your franchises at Touching Arts and Home and anything you'd like to share?
Yeah. Well, we're our Yardley business is 12 years old. And I recently purchased the media office from another one of our owners that was having some health issues and had approached me because she was having kind of reached a point where she was having trouble continuing in the business. And so about a year ago, I purchased that from her. Um, and so we're growing that one, and we're continuing to grow our business in Yardley. Um, uh, it's look, it's a very fulfilling business when you love helping people. There's no better way than serving them on this level, whether it be in their homes or in a retirement community, whatever it is. Every client is unique and has unique needs, and their adult children have unique needs, and we're here to serve them, and it's just very fulfilling.
Yeah, I love what you said about the conference with so many new faces and just your willingness. I saw your face. You had that big smile on your face and you talked about some of the things that they may be feeling. And if they weren't feeling that, right, I'd wonder if they were really ready to start a business because there's always going to be a sense of, am I ready? Do I have enough? All the I'm going into a new industry. And so, but we can't let those feelings, right? We either have to uh, we can't let those feelings hold us captive if we want to do something great in life. And so I love entrepreneurs, as you know. But Dave, just share with me a little bit, like how did that make you feel and where do you get that from? Just like, the whole network just wants to see our network grow and thrive and there's a camaraderie, but just share that with me because it's really special.
Yeah, well, I think all of us remember what it was like when we first started. And whether you come from a sales background, a trade background, maybe you did own a small business before, but I would say most of the people getting into franchising probably didn't own a small business before. And it's a scary prospect at first. And you wonder, okay, whatever my background was, do I have what it takes? It's a big leap of faith
Mm,
and a lot of times you feel like you're jumping into the deep end
yeah.
and hoping you can swim. Um, but if I think when you have a heart to serve, and you just want to help people, um, you know, we're in a segment of the market that is a thriving segment. It's not like we're wondering, is there enough business out there? Okay. It's really up to us just to conduct ourselves properly, put out a good service, have a good culture within your own business that becomes apparent to others that you're going to network with or that you're going to um, interact with, and the rest kind of takes care of itself. And the business side of of this business for some is more challenging because again, they may not have come from running a business or even, let's say, being in a managerial position with another company, whether it be sales oriented or otherwise. Um, but you've got a lot of owners that have business acumen, like myself. I was an executive before this, so I knew how to run a business. I just didn't know what I didn't know about this particular business, which is why you franchise. Somebody else has made the mistakes in this kind of a business. So why not hook into that level of expertise and take advantage of a system that's put in place by mistakes that have already been made and that have been honed and refined and continue to get refined, every day, because we've got a franchisor in Touching Hearts that wants to be the best and is continually looking to refine and hone and do the things that make being a franchisee worthwhile. The training, from the initial training, which is a little bit like drinking out of a fire hose. It can be overwhelming, and talking to new owners, you know they're a little bit overwhelmed, and even though the training is fabulous, and the ongoing hand-holding is very good. And we started a mentorship program, and I mentor some of the new owners. Um, this whole idea of a supporting network, you're not just getting the franchisor, the home office supporting what you do, but part of franchising is that you've got a whole team of like owners that are going through the same thing or have already gone through the same thing. And what a resource. I mean, it's you can't replace that. You can't open a book and get that. This is real time, real experience, real experiences that people can share and say, "Hey, don't do that. I tried it. It didn't work." Or, "Hey, if you haven't tried this, try this." Okay? I think in the situation you're describing to me, this would really be worthwhile. So it's sort of like it's black and white. You're not going into a gray area. You're going into an area of already proven things that you can hook into, and your chance of success is so much greater. What is the average small business success rate is very small.
Yeah,
But I
oh, for
think the
sure.
franchise success rate is significantly greater, for those reasons that I just described.
No question about it. Well, very well said, Dave. Very well said. One thing I'd like to switch gears if we can just a tad. And, uh, Yardley has been open now for 12 years. Uh, Tell me how, from your perspective, how has the industry changed in the last 12 years? And or has it? And is it positive and negative? How have you had to shift if you had to? I'm really curious.
Yeah, well, there are a couple of aspects you can talk about to answer that question. First of all, the growth in the industry as the baby booming population has aged, of course, has been almost exponential, um, and almost to a point where it hasn't been graceful. I mean, it's become so quickly that the number of caregivers, the supply is been diminished. And with some of the restrictions on immigration and everything else, where a lot of the caregiving population can come from, it's created some challenges, not that can't be overcome. But I think there's also just been a greater awareness of caregiving
Mm,
and families that need help. Years and years ago, most families, dad worked and mom didn't, and when the parents got old, there was a little bit of an easy way to, or an easier way of taking care of them in one way or another, whether they moved in with you or you had a wife that was, free. But, today with two income earners in most families, the stress on that model has become tremendous as parents age. And, your husband and wife, the adult children recognize that they can't stay at home safely or in a healthy way. And what do? I mean, they don't have time to devote to this, I don't want to say problem. I mean, but
yeah,
it is, or let's just call it a situation.
yeah.
They want to help, but they can only do so much. They're running a family. They're both working. So they really become stressed out of their minds. And that's where, we're the lifeline for that. So that's been, one of the big changes. I think, um, we've become a more regulated business over time, which in a lot of ways is good. I mean, years and years ago, this was kind of like the Wild West, and anything went, and there was no regulation, there was no licensing, there were no standards to be upheld. But I think it's been a good thing for the industry for more and more states to put some sort of regulation or structure in place, to protect the consumer
Yep.
in a lot of situations, but it also it helps to assure a better standard of care that we need to adhere to, and not that we wouldn't all exceed that anyway at Touching Hearts, but just as an industry, I think it's helped to elevate the reputation of caregiving in this field, and the importance of the caregiver. So, I mean, those are kind of some of the changes that have gone on, and finding caregivers because become more challenging. Good caregivers has become more challenging. There are plenty of warm bodies out there, but if you want to run a business that's excellent and not just average or maybe a little above average, you have to work a little harder, a little smarter in how you go about your recruiting and your onboarding and your training. And I think it becomes critical that your caregivers are adhering to your culture,
Mm,
your value structure. What are your core values? Do they know that from the moment you talk to them? So that you're assuring yourself of a better experience, for your clients.
so yeah, it's so true. So good. So one of the things that you just spoke about was, finding, you made a point to emphasize finding good caregivers. In your process, has there anything that you've been able to identify to, you know, good from average, good from bad? I mean, just curious. And in the beginning stages, is there anything?
Well, to me, if I can find somebody or identify somebody that has a heart for caregiving, has a heart for serving, I almost don't care what their skills are.
Mm,
I can
mm,
teach them the skills necessary to make them a great caregiver. I can't teach them heart.
yeah.
Okay. And conversely, I'll get people that come to us with certifications, CNAs, HHAs, and they're so proud that they've got the certification because they think it's their ticket to higher wages and everything else. But I can tell right away they don't have a heart for this. They're doing
Mm,
it for the dollar, and their heart isn't to really serve. It's not a place of compassion. Um, and compassion is one of our core values. But also along with that, if you have that kind of compassion to serve, there's a better chance you're going to be reliable. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a better chance you're going to want to be excellent and not average. So finding those people in your conversation, drilling down to really discover that heart, um, that's really gives you a much better chance of having a good experience with that caregiver. And I think you're more likely to have those kind of people if you can get referrals from your existing caregivers. And we really emphasize and reward referrals from our existing caregivers. And that's kind of fun for them. They get a nice little reward, a financial reward for referring people. And those are our best people, the referrals that come from our existing caregivers, because our existing caregivers know what we're looking for.
Yeah.
They love working for us. So they're going to really sing our praises to a friend, a relative, another coworker that they may see somewhere else, see in a facility, and oh boy, I wish I could find a good company to work for. And they're like, wow, you need to come work for us,
Yeah,
which is
that's
great. And so,
doesn't get much better than that. And so
yeah.
what do you see for in way of opportunities or potential obstacles the next 10 years for our industry?
Well, you can always be concerned about government regulation. Okay.
Mhm.
Whether it be labor laws that become more onerous with how you have to treat overtime in this business, particularly where you have caregivers that may want to you may have that are living with clients. What really, if they're living with the client, really how many hours are they working each day? How many days do you have to? How many hours do you have to pay? And overtime and whatnot. Um, Certainly, if you have a business that is doing any kind of Medicaid waiver business, which we don't do, but other agencies do at times, and they can be it can be a meaningful part of their business, but that level of reimbursement can change. And kind of one of the reasons I don't do Medicaid business, I don't want to be subject to the whims of the government.
Mm.
In that sort of thing. So government regulation is always something to be concerned about. Um, and I think how well the VA serves the VA population. Certain areas, it's very hard to get a VA approval or a license to do VA business, or certification, I really should say. And some areas they close those down, so you can't. If you're a new agency, you may not be able to get a VA certification. So things like that. I think that the more I wish there were more awareness for caregivers coming into the field.
Yeah.
We don't really promote, there's nothing that promotes caregiving as a valuable living. You've got trades that promote themselves. You've got universities and colleges that promote ongoing education, but we don't do a good job of promoting caregiver, the whole idea of becoming a caregiver and how valuable that can be, how rewarding it can be. And, if somebody wants to really commit to this business and work in it full time, they can earn a reasonable living.
Mhm.
Um, and, living caregivers can make some very, very nice money, in the $70,000 a year plus range,
Yeah.
So, there is money to be made if you want to commit to it and really do, good work in this field.
Well, it sounds like it really starts with the heart, and
Yeah.
then everything can be learned from there, and you could find yourself in a great career with uh, truly tremendous upside, or definitely a career path. And then the other thing that we think is important, every day you go to work, you're going to be able to make true impact on another person's life, um, and bring joy and bring the ability for them to be able to live safely in their own home in the fourth quarter of their life. And I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So
Yeah. And you're
I'm with,
working one on one.
yeah. You're so right. I mean, and you're building relationships and with these folks and Dave, you're right. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, we need to do you know, you know me, I'm a little uh I may be 5 years ahead of myself. But we need to do a PSA for a nationwide PSA that just honors caregivers, shows the great work that they do, and really let the nation know that we're hiring. Our
Yeah.
industry is hot. We have to, and we're looking for some good people with great hearts.
Yeah, there's really no such thing as a caregiver that's out of work if they want to work.
That's right.
You know, you know, the idea that, oh, you can't find work. There are more opportunities than there are good caregivers, and that's the simple fact. And the ability to work one-on-one with somebody. I mean, think about it. It's like caring for your grandma. Is that a job? No, it's not even a job. It's just something that's enjoyable, and you can be paid for it. You know,
And
yeah,
yeah, and oh, by the way, I mean, I'm just speaking from my own experience of being with my own grandparents who were absolutely influential in my life. Um, Not only are you going to get paid, but they're going to pay you with wisdom. And it doesn't matter who you're serving. uh there's a nugget of wisdom that you're I bet you can take away and grab hold of every single time you leave a shift, and that's really cool. But we got to be willing to see those nuggets and pick them up. They're there.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And again, the opportunity to really have a personal impact on somebody's life and to you just feel the appreciation that they have for you caring for them. I mean, I look at what we do as a ministry, really.
Yeah.
And, what better way to do God's work in helping others and loving others than serving Him on this level? I mean, it's a wonderful thing.
It absolutely is. And you're bringing the church to their home, and I mean
Yeah,
essentially. And yeah, I mean there's so many great parallels here. Um, at the end of the day, you really kind of hit a hammer over my head, and perhaps some other folks that may be listening to this. Because I don't necessarily, obviously we have a caregiver shortage, right? But I'm not so sure those people aren't out there. Like you said, they may not be aware, and they may not be aware of the great opportunity. And so we just have to think strategically how we can continue to push the word out. Because I believe that there's enough people in America with great hearts that are looking for purposeful work, that want to raise their hand and say, "Here am I, send me." And oh, you're going to pay me? Okay, great.
yeah, yeah. And it doesn't even have to be entry level. I mean, you've got when the kids are out of the house and maybe a couple will find themselves in a situation where they don't need two full-time workers anymore, but mom or dad, they're looking for something meaningful to do. And it can be part-time. It doesn't have to be full-time because there's so many part-time pieces to this business. So, this is something that can be very fulfilling for someone that's already retired, and still would like to do something to give back a little bit, and still get paid for it. But I find that's especially like sometimes you're going to churches and talking to the pastor or the deacons or whoever it is and say, hey, if you've got some of your flock that kind of have vocalized that they, what can I do that can be meaningful to helping people? Boom, they're wonderful caregivers.
Yeah,
And but they don't know this exists really.
right. And for the exact reason that you mentioned, the generation that is the baby boomers, right? They were used to growing up with watching their parents, one of them likely not working, you know, taking whatever the case. It was just a different time. And
Yeah,
so I really feel like this is just kind of a, for lack of a better term, a perfect storm, but we've got to shine a light and make other folks aware that, man, we got great opportunities to make great impacts all
no
around you.
question.
Yeah. Well, Dave, I just want to give you the floor. Take 30 seconds, take 2 minutes, whatever you want. And then I will just close this out. But seriously, anything that you want to share, um,
Well, I go to kind of thinking, when people say, "Do you have any regrets about this business?" And I truthfully, my answer is that I didn't do this sooner. And so I would say that, anybody that's out there that's kind of contemplating a career change or maybe, again, something more meaningful, something that has more personal impact on people's lives than whatever they've been doing. Like I said, I was an executive. I had a very nice, role in consumer goods. I was president of different companies. Um, but I just really wanted to have more personal impact on people's lives. And I guess, to some degree, fear of the unknown prevented me from doing this a little sooner. I thought it would always be nice to own my own business, but it was sort of like, oh, maybe one of these days I'll get around to that. Um, but as luck would have it, I kind of um, had an opportunity given to me in the sense that the company I was running got bought. The acquiring company was putting their management team in place, and it was like, you know what, maybe I should scratch this itch.
mm,
Maybe it's time. And that led me to this. But boy, I just wish I had done it sooner. I mean, I love this. And I enjoyed what I was doing before, but again, just doesn't have that personal meaning, that fulfillment that this has.
yeah.
And so I would just say to somebody, man, don't wait till you're ready to retire to think about doing something like this. Um, if gosh, the people I see that are even in their 30s or certainly their 40s, that are starting in this business, I envy them. I mean, it's just, man, you are so lucky that you're doing this now. That I would just encourage people to certainly consider this, look into it, if that's where your heart is.
Mm,
Your heart has to be here. I mean, if you're doing this just because, oh, this looks like a good way to make money, you know what? It may not be the right thing for you.
yeah.
Because you really need the heart to serve, and you need the patience to be in a business where you're managing people. You're managing your caregiving staff. It takes patience. There's no getting around that. It can be challenging, but it's worth it. It is so worth it. So I think if you've got any of that mindset of just enjoying serving people, helping people, and would like the challenge that comes with owning your own business, yeah, I mean, just do it sooner than later. I mean, it's worth it. It is really worth it.
Well, once again, Dave just leaves me speechless. Uh,
That's not easy.
you're right. I usually have something to say. Hey, Dave, I want to thank you so much. I appreciate everything that you've done for this brand. I appreciate the way that you do serve not only locally, but truly across the nation in terms of really advising us and in terms of serving on the franchise advisory board with other tremendous individuals. And I want to thank you for your friendship. I want to thank you that I feel like if I needed to call you and ask you a question, I always could, and you would welcome that. And thank you for everything that you do. And I just appreciate being on the same team with you. I mean that. So,
Well, that's
well,
very, very kind of you, but it runs both ways.
oh, yes. Well, my name's Glenn Leingang once again. This is another conversation from the heart uh, with a friend. I think when you hear this, you'll just realize Dave's a friend to everybody, and that's awesome. With Dave Wollman, Again, Glenn Leingang, Conversations from the Heart. I hope you enjoy this podcast. Thank you.